Hi everybody, Dr. Dan Lawrence here. So I wanted to make a separate video here to talk about the writing process and how we can apply that. And of course, this is material covered in your textbook, but I really wanted to take some time to talk about this with you because it's at the heart of the class, right? And it should be at the heart of any writing that you do as you move forward in this class and in your career. So basically, the writing process has distinct stages that you're going to apply and can apply to any writing scenario. So we have things like pre-writing. That's where before you've even started writing, maybe you've made a bullet list, you've taken some notes, you've thought about the problem at hand, pre-writing. You draft, you revise, you edit, and you proofread. That's, I think, a universal 5 point model. So pre writing, drafting, revising, editing, proofreading. A 5 point model that you can apply. So it's a process approach to writing. So let's go through each of those steps. These are, you should do this for every writing task that you come across. Now, there's probably caveats, right? Like if you know, you have 5 minutes and you need to write an email to somebody, are you really going to subject it to a, you should at least proofread your own emails probably, but maybe there's some room for debate there in terms of cat hair on my sweater here. Okay. Um, right. I mean, so there are maybe caveats here, but say you're writing a report, you're writing a resume, you're writing something with some impact and some import. Your best bet is to subject it to these distinct stages of a writing process. Okay, so pre-writing, that's your research, that's your brainstorming, that's your thinking. That means you have to think about things like audience, who's actually going to read the document. That matters, right? I mean, is it someone in your field who's going to know all the specific jargon and terminology that you're familiar with? Or is it a general reader who maybe has a different educational background? Maybe you have to explain your terms, right? That's the difference between, like, imagine a highly technical, scientific, peer reviewed research article versus an article that's in a popular website that's reporting on a study. Very different language. You're trying to convey the same essential information, but the approach, the style is very different. So that's audience specific. So when you're thinking about your document, you're always thinking about, before you even start writing, you should think about the audience. Who's actually going to read the thing? Who's going to actually have it in front of them on a screen or in their hand and actually read a document? The second major central pre-writing question is the question of purpose. What is the purpose of the document? What are you ultimately trying to convey? What is the essential information? What is the main point or the main argument? What is the idea that must be transmitted, right? And from there, you can also think about then organization. You're like, how am I even going to structure this document? Are there certain expectations or standards? Does my manager want me to use a certain style of formatting? Maybe is there a template that I need to use? In this class, we're not using templates, but I'm just thinking more broadly about workplace scenarios, right? Um, is there a specific template you should use if you're working professionally in marketing and you have a weekly marketing report you have to write? It's like, okay, it has distinct sections that you're going to have to include, and you know that. But if you're organizing a document from scratch, often we might have a section for the overview or the introduction, use a heading to delineate that, to separate that. Then we might have like a primary findings or analysis. Then maybe we have a conclusion, right? So you can organize a document based on its purpose. In fact, the organization of a document should always be aligned with its purpose. The organization should serve the purpose of the document, so the most important information is logically organized. That's where your paragraph structure comes in too, right? Paragraphs are not random. Paragraphs are logically cohesive chunks of information. So you move from topic to topic, maybe four, five, 3 to 5 sentences in a paragraph in most common workplace documents, and they're all anchored together by having some kind of similarity in the logical thread, right? Or some similar topic that all not even similar but cohesive, right? A cohesive topic that binds all that information together is a paragraph, right? Um, Paragraphs are made up of sentences, and sentences made up of your words, and your word choice is diction. The way that you arrange the words is syntax, and then the way that you arrange the sentences in the paragraph structure creates even more, uh, an even broader logical flow to the document, which aids your readability. So that's all in pre-writing. We haven't even written anything yet, but we're thinking about how am I going to structure this document? How am I going to put it together? What should the sections be? What does it really need to convey? Who's going to read it? We're really seriously asking all those questions because that's going to help us write. Asking all those questions in the beginning is going to help us conceptualize the document. So then you draft, right? You actually open up a Word document or Google Docs or whatever. And I think the trick there is, you know, maybe you have writer's block or you struggle to get the words out. Just let a first draft surface, right? There's a famous uh, scholar, Anne Lamott, who said, write a shitty first draft. Sorry for the language, but I like that terminology. Write a shitty first draft. Just get it out on the page. Go ahead. You know, obviously, you shouldn't try not to fabricate or lie or introduce too many problems into the document, but just allow that kind of psychological barrier to dissipate by saying, all right, it's just a first draft. We're gonna revisit it. We're gonna come back to it. Let's try to convey the main ideas here in our first draft and just get it on the page. And that can actually speed up your process, right? It might seem like this long, tedious, cumbersome thing we're doing by breaking writing into distinct stages, but actually it adds a kind of efficiency because it's like you're putting in these checks and balances in your method for approaching a document. So this can really speed up your writing process. Just allow that draft to come out with the knowledge that we're going to go back and ask essential questions about it. Okay, so after we've drafted, we've say, when are you done with a draft is when you've run out of steam, basically, or you run out of things to say, and you think that you've basically achieved the fundamental purpose of the document in the first place, right? Move then to a revision stage. In your revision stage, you're asking, well, have I actually succeeded in conveying the most important information? When I read through this draft, um, does it actually hit along the purpose? Maybe we need an example here, right? Like, imagine your manager has asked you to summarize the pros and cons of a new type of software and whether you should implement it in your workplace, right? And so maybe you spent all this time researching a new piece of software and you tried it out and you wrote up a whole thing. But then when you read through it, you're like, wait a minute, I never actually stated whether I think it's a good idea if we adopt it or not. Maybe I got kind of sidetracked by my competitive analysis and then I never really. So then, when in a revision stage, you go back and you're like, okay, I'm going to clearly write here that I recommend that we adopt this software because of these particular benefits and because it outweighs the competition, right? So in a revision stage, you go back and you ask that fundamental question, like, has my writing actually achieved the fundamental purpose that it set out to do? And if not, what changes do I need to make? Do I need to cut out whole paragraphs? Do I need to delete sentences? Do I need to go back to a research stage again and find new information to pull in? These are like recursive steps, right? We can bounce between them throughout the writing process. We can bounce between stages. Okay, so after you've conducted a revision, asking whether the document achieves its fundamental purpose, you move on to an editing. And this is very hard for people, right? Editing must be slow. It's like philosophy in that way. You don't pick up Plato or Nietzsche and try to speed read it. It's meant to be, intended to be a deliberate, conscious process. It must be to do it accurately. When you edit, you should go line by line, sentence by sentence through your document to make sure you're checking for errors, typos, grammatical errors, run-on sentences, clunky sentences even that are just unclear. Maybe you can have a perfectly grammatically correct sentence that just sounds, when you read it, you're like, what does that really mean? Could I rewrite that in a way that better expresses the central idea so that it comes across with clarity, with precision, with exactness? You're doing that. You're going sentence by sentence by sentence through the whole document. You're checking your dates. You're checking the facts that you pulled in from your research. Did you accurately grab that information? Is that data correct? Did you miss a comma? Did you miss a zero? Numbers, right? And it's so important. Like I've had students really in the past, they said, I thought I was doing a great job applying to all these positions, and then I realized I had my phone number wrong on the resume. I mean, what a nightmare, right? You spend like hours and hours and hours applying to jobs, and then you realized you had the wrong, you typed your email address wrong in the letterhead at the top of the cover letter or something. Things like that. I mean, really, those mistakes can happen, and that's why you must commit to that very careful editing process, the very line, sentence by sentence. And there's a great section in the textbook, chapter 2, about how to edit sentences and common problems and how to resolve them. So I really it's a great textbook. Don't sleep on the textbook, right? Don't pass on the textbook. It's a good textbook. Okay, finally, at this point, you've probably been doing this for a while. It's good to step away from your document too. It's good to take a little break. When I write, I probably only write for about an hour at a time at most. I find that I lose focus and I'm not as precise after a certain point. And that's at most, right? Maybe half hour, 45 minutes. Then I'll get up from my desk and walk around and clear my head, come back. Your final stage is proofreading, and that's where you do that final pass through, and that's where you check everything. It's like, is it even the right file type? You know, is it a PDF, um, or does it need to be something else? What about the title of the document? What about the file name itself? Um, where is it going? And all those big questions too. But and then you're proofreading. When you're proofreading, you're going through again line by line. You're doing a read through, and you're just trying to catch it's quality control, right? If that's helps you, instead of calling it proofreading, it's like a quality control. Imagine every software company does this. They have testers. Imagine a video game company. They publish a new game and they hire a bunch of people to play the game to make sure that it's not broken. Sometimes they release broken games anyway, or they miss some of the bugs, but um, that's what proofreading is. Proofreading is like a final quality control check over your own writing, because humans make mistakes. You will make mistakes. I make mistakes. Everyone does. But that by subjecting your writing to a proofreading process, you're more likely to catch them. Right? You've edited the document and now you're proofreading. And if you want to be really careful, set the document down, do a second proofread. It'll help you catch your own mistakes if you really take the time to proofread your document. Okay. Those are the five stages of the writing process. Pre-writing, research, note-taking, thinking about the problem, about your audience, about the purpose of the document, of how you're going to approach the situation. Drafting, which is where you get that kind of initial burst of language out on the page. You get those basic ideas conveyed. Really importantly, then, you're not done. You're not done when you've drafted. That's just your first draft, right? Then you must revise the document. That's where you go through and you ask those big top level questions of, does it achieve the purpose that I set out to achieve? Does it accomplish what I need it to accomplish? Do I need to move sections around or cut things or add things. Then you edit. Editing is that careful, slow, line by line, sentence by sentence process. And then finally, proofread, stage five of the five-step writing process. You proofread, you go through again and you look over, you're carefully scanning. It's your quality control stage where you try to get down to zero errors, 0% error threshold, which just helps you in so many ways to control your own writing. You want to have quality writing because you want to present yourself as a serious person in the world. No one will take you seriously if you have too many issues with your writing. It conveys a particular ethos. It conveys a lack of care. Um, it can cause manifold problems in your life. So really, I mean very seriously, make sure you're editing and proofreading and try out that five-step writing process for all your documents for this class. The more you practice it, the more natural it will seem, and then universally you can take that and apply it to any writing scenario in your life. All right. Good job, everybody. Take care of yourselves.